Coronavirus, a virus that changed our lives. It all started in China in December of 2019. A new virus was discovered from the family of the coronavirus, called COVID-19. No one thought that this would end being a global pandemic, but nowadays all countries have suffered the worst consequences. First in Asia, then in Europe, and now in America, our home. COVID 19 is a disease caused by a specific virus, SARS CoV 2, that affects principally the respiratory system and the immune system. The most vulnerable are older adults and people with chronic diseases, such as liver disease, diabetes, depressed immune system, etc. But our health is not the only thing that is being affected. These three aspects are being affected in a lot of ways, positive and negative ways. First, the economic impact. On this pandemic, we have learned that many companies that had a huge value now they don't have any value or are in the edge of bankrupt, such as JCPenney's, United, or Gap. Also, there are some companies that declare themselves in bankrupt, like Avianca or Latam. The unemployment was a big problem, but now it's getting worse. Many restaurants, clubs, bars, hotels, parks, and many other things that were for the entertainment or the mobilization for the people are not working anymore. All these companies gave work both directly or indirectly for thousands of people. Also, there are a lot of countries in which the main economic source is tourism, and because of the pandemic, there is no one that can travel to another country, making the tourism decrease in an exponential way.
International organizations such as the International Economic Cooperation and Demand and the International Monetary Fund have warned that because of the pandemic, the world and the economy are going to have a lot of changes. First, the oil. The oil it's not just losing its value because of the demand, but it's also because there is an internal war between Russia and Saudi Arabia. These two countries are the biggest producers of oil in the world. Second, inflation. The inflation is that the products are getting a bigger value or a bigger price, that it's getting more expensive the things. So the thing here is that the government needs to inject the money to the citizens because they need to help them to survive because the economy of the specific countries or the world is having a lot of problems. For example, in some countries like in France, they said that the citizens don't have to pay their bills of the gas, water, and electricity. Also, the ones that have credit cards don't have to pay them because in these situations, the people are not in the best moment to paying a lot of taxes or paying a lot of things that they were supposed to pay with no problem the last year. Another thing here is that the unemployment has grown a lot. For example, in countries like Colombia, the unemployment has grown the 19.8%, and in the United States, the unemployment has grown the 14.2%. This rate says that there are more people that are not getting any job, and also they are maybe not getting enough things to get their food or can survive for every single day. Now, in some countries, in some really poor countries, for example in Colombia, there are a lot of people that already needed a lot of help from the government, but now in this situation there are more people because there are more unemployment people, and also that there are informal workers. These informal workers are people that work from their daily day. This means that they go outside to the streets, they sell their products, and the amount of money that they get from that day, it's what they're going to use to survive. But in these situations, they can't, and also there are more people that are dying because they can't eat than of getting contagious of the virus.
Now I'm going to talk about the political impact. The political sector is also getting affected because of the coronavirus, but not only in a negative way, but also in positive things. As example, many politicians are using the situation to create a better images by the actions they're taking or the things they said to the people. For example, nowadays Claudia Lopez is a politician with more approval. She has an approval of 78.1%. And also Ivan Duque, that has been traveling with this aspect. Now with the pandemic, he grew and he has an approval of 63.2%. So they are getting benefit of that, and that will make an impact for their career in the future. Another thing you should take into account is that many of the things we see on the news, journals, or social media are controlled or influenced by the government. So we have to be very critical when we see or read a news. Fake news is something that is really affected this pandemic because it can generate more panic, and we really don't need that. Or also it can contribute to be relaxed and don't respect the government decisions for us to be safe. Now I'm going to say some examples of some fake news that are appearing nowadays. The first one is that many people said that you can buy on internet the COVID test, but that is completely false. Those tests are not authorized by the government. So if you really feel sick and you have a necessity of doing the test, please go online in the website of the government and look at what do you have to do if you feel the symptoms. Finally, another example very common of fake news are the WhatsApp messages. The majority of these messages are not true. You don't know which person wrote it and which are the basis of the message. So please don't believe on that. Don't try the medicine that appear there, the home or miracle medicines. As example, there is a WhatsApp message that says that Italy has found the cure of the coronavirus, and it says like some tips for you to be safe, but that is not true. It just wants to generate more panic or make you do things that are not good for you or for your health. Another important thing you should analyze is that the extremes, economy or political extremes, are not the best governments because in moments of crisis, they don't act in the way they should. For example, extreme right politicians as the President of the United States and the President of Brazil are not taking action in this pandemic because they prefer to put the economy first and then the safe and the health of the people. For example, in the United States, there are more than 1,008,000 cases, and in Brazil, there are more than 500,000, being the Latin American country with more cases. Okay, so another example of extreme is the left extreme. We can see the situation on Venezuela, where the government is hiding the data because they don't have enough sources or health places to make the test for the people. So obviously if they just have 10 tests, they will just have 10 cases, but that is not how it works, and we have to know the truth actually, because it's our neighbor country and it can affect not just Venezuela but all the Latin American countries. So you have to be very critical, you have to see what is happening, the data, so you should take a place if you're right or left. And this pandemic is a very good opportunity to you to see which of those sites acts in a better way in those moments of crisis, so you can have an idea of what is the better ideology. Finally, we can conclude that in Latin America it's very difficult to manage the situation because besides we have the pandemic, there are also some political problems that don't make the country act in the better way. For example, Argentina is passing through a new economic crisis that is really affecting the country. Also, Peru and Ecuador are passing through some electoral campaign that are very polarized, so they have that democratic problem. And also, countries as Nicaragua and Venezuela are failing states, so they have enough sources to act. And the powers that are Mexico and Brazil are the ones nowadays with the most spread of coronavirus.
Thanks to the spread of COVID-19, or mainly known as coronavirus, the Earth has taken a huge breath from human activity. Biodiversity is taking advantage of the quarantine
to take care of itself, recover, and feel a little bit free. So, these changes have brought an important relief to the climate crisis because, first of all, the air quality has improved in a significant way because nobody has been using land or air vehicles, which is interesting because 5% of the global contamination belongs to the air traffic. A second interesting fact is that the closure of factories and shops in China, which is one of the most contaminated countries, has created a decrease in the fossil fuels and a drop of 25% of their carbon dioxide emissions, which is equivalent to the 6% globally. On the other hand, in a good news, thanks to the suspension of maritime activities and tourism, water has recovered their beautiful waters, some animals have returned to their original environment and have come closer and closer to the shore, which is beautiful. For example, in Venice, Italy, the canal water has become clearer and some hidden animals such as variety of fishes and swans have come to light. But that's not all. The silence of human activity have brought the animals to be more curious and they walk through the streets and public places where we can notice them with more detail, leaving us fascinated. For example, in Norte de Santander, Colombia, there was a spectacle baby with her mother seen by peasants by the Seine.
In conclusion, we have been searching about the consequences that the corona crisis will leave us and how every day these three environmental, political, and economic aspects are being affected. We saw that in the environmental aspect, there has been some improvements because the contamination levels have decreased. In the economic aspect, we saw that everyone has to reinvent because the world is changing. And if we don't change our way to see and act, we're going to get stuck. And talking about the political aspect, we can include that political extremes are bad, left and right, because in moments of crisis, they don't know how to act. This pandemic has been a real challenge for all of us, and after this, the world will have to change the way how we live. This will change our lives forever, an unforgettable year, but we will be known as the humans who beat the coronavirus pandemic.